Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. Today is the death anniversary of Burhan Wani, a freedom fighter who lost his life last year while fighting for freedom and fighting for the people of Kashmir, fighting for a cause. The people of Kashmir have been fighting Indian atrocities for the last 70 years. Many innocent people have lost their lives, and pellet guns have been used on innocent children, on women. Ambulances have been attacked, hospitals have been attacked, just because the people of Kashmir want freedom and that they reject the Indian atrocities in Kashmir. This whole resistance is basically not militancy that India is fighting in Kashmir. This is not militancy that India is fighting. This is a collective political awareness that India is fighting in Kashmir. People of Kashmir have stood up for their cause. The youth this time, they have owned the resistance and they have stood up against the Indian atrocities. Pakistan stands with the people of Kashmir for their rights, and Pakistan condemns the violation of human rights in Kashmir. Today is an exclusive program, an exclusive interview with our special guest in the studios, President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Sardar Masood Khan Sahab. Welcome to the program, Mr. President. Today is the death anniversary of Burhan Wani, a freedom fighter. Kashmiri people in Indian-occupied Kashmir have been fighting for their rights for the last 70 years. How do you see the Kashmir cause, the resistance over there?
I think Burhan Wani's martyrdom was a new landmark in the history of freedom struggle in Kashmir. Let's not forget that starting from 1947-48, Kashmiris have been giving sacrifices and India has been committing crimes against humanity. This started with the ethnic cleansing of Muslims in Jammu, and it continued apace throughout these decades. And now the number of people killed in the Indian-occupied Kashmir is about 500,000, 500,000 over the decades. Burhan Wani's martyrdom signaled a change. It is the fifth generation of Kashmiris totally rejected India's rule and writ. They said that this is an illegitimate rule. They say the demand, the slogans that they chant there, they say, go India, go back, leave our Kashmir, and we want freedom. And they say, Azadi ka matlab kya, la ilaha illallah. So it represents the aspirations of the Kashmiri people, broadly speaking, but also the aspirations of the Kashmiri youth, men and women, young students, all segments of civil society, all the three areas, regions of Kashmir, they have rejected India's rule. So this is one big reality that you have there. The second reality is that India has escalated its repression and aggression against the Kashmiris. They have cordoned them off, the Kashmiris, the entire population of Kashmir, and then killed them mercilessly with impunity. This is what is happening. The third reality is, and I want to highlight, is that India thinks that it ought to punish the people of Azad Kashmir also. So they continue to fire across the LOC to target our civilians. They have done today also in Abbaspur and Nakyal sectors. The deliberate and evil design is that target the civilians, and Pakistan would be restrained because it won't be able to target civilians on that side of the LOC because we consider them as our citizens. And they do not target military posts here on our side. The fourth reality is that India thinks that it ought to punish Pakistan for its stand, its principled and consistent stand on Jammu and Kashmir. And that's why they have unleashed a proxy war against Pakistan in various forms. I mean, they support these subversive activities. They engineer and sponsor terrorism in Pakistan. They try to penetrate into the political forces in Pakistan's institutions. They have targeted Karachi and Fatah and Balochistan and many other parts of Pakistan, and Gwadar, for instance, because they want to sabotage CPEC. Behind all this is their resentment about Pakistan's stand on Kashmir. Burhan Wani heralds a new era. And here the verdict of the people of Kashmir is so clear that it has been heard by people all around the world. And their indictment against India is also very clear.
especially after Burhan Wani's martyrdom last year. The way youth have taken up the resistance in Kashmir is unprecedented.
Yes.
College girls, not just men or not just boys, college girls and school girls, they have also been resisting and fighting the Indian forces in Indian occupied Kashmir. How do you see that? The way youth is, the young people, they are taking up this resistance.
Absolutely. I think this tide was rising even before the martyrdom of Burhan Wani. There was this new ferment in the freedom movement, a new impulse, and this was led by the youth of Kashmir. And youth, as you have rightly pointed out, it's students, it's also young men and women who are working in different walks of life. Also workers and farmers and business persons and people living in the villages, people living in the towns and cities. So the entire population has risen against the Indian occupation. India was hoping that this tide would die down. You have to understand India's designs and their strategy. Their strategy, which was counseled by their national security advisor years ago, was to kill and punish Kashmiris mercilessly beyond their power to bear this loss, bear this kind of punishment. And second was that they wanted to eliminate the political idiom in their dialogue with the Kashmiris. And they wanted to eliminate political parameters in their talks with Pakistan. So they have been following this multi-pronged strategy, but they have failed miserably. Repression won't intimidate Kashmiris and won't cow them down. They have risen to defend their right to self-determination and their right to liberty and freedom for all times to come.
Pakistan has been trying for peace and stability in the region. Azad Kashmir has been trying for peace and stability in the region. But we don't see that being reciprocated by the Indian side, by the present BJP government, by the present Indian government especially. India wants to lead South Asia, and India wants to become a big power. India has now become part of, a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but still they continue the atrocities in Kashmir. Still they are violating the human rights in Kashmir. Still innocent children, innocent women are being martyred in Kashmir. Do you think that India can continue with violating all these human rights and still become a part of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or let's say other big platforms?
Regrettably, there is no accountability for India. And this is because of two reasons. The commercial and economic interests of major powers with India. They find India a very profitable market. This is one. Second is that their strategic alliance with India. India has deceived the West into believing that somehow they can decelerate the path of progress of China and they can deliver China to the West, a reduced China, a China which is chastened to the West. Because of these two realities, because of these two factors, the world is looking the other way. I mean, major powers and the international community or the United Nations or the permanent members of the Security Council, they are not addressing human rights crisis or humanitarian crisis in Indian occupied Kashmir. This is what is happening. This is kind of encouraging and endorsing impunity. And as you know, that these soldiers, occupation forces in Jammu and Kashmir, in the Indian occupied Kashmir, they've gone berserk and they kill people and they have been given immunity from prosecution because they usually invoke some laws. So for instance, Public Safety Act, or the other one is what you call the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Now, these acts are lawless laws as they have been categorized or classified by Amnesty International, not proper laws, because these are black draconian laws that they use to impose their will on Kashmiris. In real terms, India is a colonial power, and this is a Kashmir, the Indian occupied Kashmir has become a colony. Your question was whether India would continue to do so. I think that India has been given a green signal to practically, literally, to kill Kashmiris. We have to forge unity, we have to go to the international community. My own recommendation is that we should go back to the international institutions, to the United Nations, to the United Nations Security Council, to the Secretary General, to the Human Rights Council, and all other international institutions, for instance, influential parliaments in the world, so that we can create greater awareness and generate pressure on India. Otherwise, India gets scot-free, and it is not accountable at all.
Pakistan has always stood with the people of Kashmir for their cause, but recently the regional developments are also very interesting. A couple of days back, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei also gave a statement regarding Kashmir. What do you think about that? That they have also asked, the countries in the region have also realized what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir.
Not only in the region, I mean, the Islamic Cooperation Organization has been passing resolutions, and they have condemned Indian atrocities in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and they have expressed their solidarity with the entrapped Kashmiris or the people who have been incarcerated there, and this is incommunicado incarceration, incommunicado and illegal detention. They have condemned them. They have also set up an OIC contact group on Jammu and Kashmir, which passes resolutions. They have a special envoy on Kashmir. And the reason I'm enumerating these things is, I mean, there's an ICFM being held in Côte d'Ivoire, and there would be, there are summits from time to time, OIC summits, and their political communiques and final political documents do express the solidarity of the Islamic Ummah behind the Kashmiri movement, and endorses their right to self-determination as mandated by the United Nations Security Council. This year, on the 19th of January, the House of Commons held a debate on Kashmir, and there were 26 speakers who participated, 26 MPs who participated in that debate. Norway also, the Norwegian parliament also held a debate on Kashmir. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that India tries to give the impression that Kashmiris are isolated. This is not true, or that they would succeed in isolating Pakistan because Pakistan is pursuing its Kashmir agenda. So, and as we were talking before the program started, this time on the first anniversary of Burhan Wani, the international media has given extensive coverage to what is happening in Kashmir, and it has talked about the aspirations of the Kashmiris for self-determination and for freedom. And they are not looking at the Kashmir issue only through the nuclear armed India and Pakistan and the balance of power between the two nations. They have also now tried to analyze the quest of the Kashmiri people to have their inalienable right for freedom.
Whenever Pakistan has tried to talk on Kashmir, talk on peace and stability in Kashmir, India has come up with blames. Whenever we talk about Kashmir, they talk about terrorism, and they have equalized Kashmir with extremism and terrorism. Even the people who are fighting for their own rights in Kashmir are being called terrorists by the Indian forces who are already killing the innocent children over there. How do you see that? These statements equalizing Kashmir with terrorism, with extremism, how do you see it?
This is the biggest untruth of our times. Can you call Kashmiris, these unarmed Kashmiris, terrorists or extremists? They do not have any weapons. India deploys 700,000 troops in the Indian occupied Kashmir. They are armed to teeth. The armed forces are armed to teeth. They get fresh supplies from all over the world. India has become the biggest purchaser of conventional weapons. And Kashmiris are pitted against this, one of the biggest armed forces of the world, the bulk of which is deployed in IOK. Kashmiris, on the other hand, are unarmed. There is no supply chain for them for arms and ammunition. The LOC has been fenced heavily by the Indian occupation forces. They have their surveillance mechanism there, they have thermal imaging, and they have motion sensors along the LOC. So people cannot cross over to the Indian occupied side. Inside, their own security officials and security commanders say that the number of militants or armed militants is probably 200 to 300. 200 to 300 militants pitted against 700,000 troops. But there's a bigger reality. The bigger reality is that India is not afraid of these militants, because all their security officials boast about crushing these militants and that they have neutralized them. Their bigger worry is that Kashmiri's struggle is peaceful, it is widespread, it resides in the hearts and minds of all Kashmiris, and they express their solidarity with Pakistan, unambiguous solidarity with Pakistan. Because you must have seen that they bury their martyrs, their dead, in Pakistani flags. And whenever there is a funeral or whenever there is a political gathering, the color, the dominant color, becomes green, Pakistan's green. So this is what roils India. This is what really becomes, this is what always rattles them.
Right. We'll continue our discussion on Kashmir. This is an exclusive program with President Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan. And after this break, I'll ask the President that whatever the BJP government, the present Indian government talk with Pakistan or with the people of Kashmir about peace and stability, many innocent people, innocent Kashmiris have lost their lives in the last 70 years. And after the death of Burhan Wani, this continues and the resistance has multiplied. We'll take a break and then we'll continue our dialogue with the President. Stay with us.
वो बहुत ही इंटेलिजेंट था, सुपर जीनियस था। हमारे बेटे के जनाजे में कर्फ्यू के बावजूद 10 लाख लोगों ने शिरकत की। इस बात को मैं नहीं मान सकता हूँ, न कोई कश्मीरी मानेगा कि वो दहशतगर्द था।
Welcome back. This is an exclusive dialogue with the President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Sardar Masood Khan. Mr. President, as we were discussing about Kashmir, Pakistan has been trying to talk about peace and stability with India. But at the same time, many experts in Pakistan, in Islamabad and elsewhere in the world think that BJP government, backed by RSS, backed by Shiv Sena, backed by extremist Hindutva mindset groups, does not want to talk about Kashmir, and they have never welcomed any talks on Kashmir at all. In 2014, when Mr. Sartaj Aziz, Prime Minister's advisor on foreign affairs, wanted to visit India, he wanted to meet the Hurriyat leaders, and the Hurriyat leaders were not allowed to meet Mr. Sartaj Aziz. The talks were called off, and that's what happened because India does not even consider the Kashmiri people as a party to this whole issue. What is the mindset in India, and why don't they want to talk about peace and stability, peace in Kashmir for that matter? They have their troops in Kashmir, and even their troops are dying every day. What is the issue?
You rightly pointed out that there's a rise of fundamentalism, Hindu extremism and violent extremism in India. People have been focused on the so-called Islamic terrorism, but the bigger reality in South Asia is the rise of Hindu extremism. And because of that extremism, they have intensified their repression in Kashmir. They are enlisting the support of local political parties or local die-hard adherents to RSS or other outfits that you were mentioning to create chaos, disruption, to create, and what they want to do is that this is a two-pincer movement. One pincer is the armed forces of India who are targeting the Kashmiris. The other pincer is these extremists who are squeezing space for the Kashmiris. So I think this is very, very sinister development, and this has very dangerous consequences, repercussions for the entire region. So, and the Kashmiris won't be deterred by these machinations or by these plots or strategies of the Hindu extremists, because they have risen. There was if you remember, there was this delegation led by Mr. Sinha. He's also a BJP leader. He went there, this delegation talked to the Kashmiris, and they said that the biggest reality right now in Kashmir was that people were not afraid of India anymore. So this is what is happening. The other factor is that they are trying to change demography of the region. They have given these nativity certificates to non-Kashmiris. They are trying to give property to them. They're also giving them voting rights. They're also investing in illegal settlements for Pandits and also for former army officers or army personnel. So change democracy, kill Kashmiris, reduce their numbers, delegitimize their presence and residence in Kashmir. That's how they want to conquer Kashmir. Recently I was in the United Kingdom and talking to some audiences there, members of parliament. I said that we think that Kashmir should be resolved through talks, through dialogue, through diplomacy. We should be sitting at peace tables. India, on the other hand, believes that it can resolve the Kashmir issue or it can annex that territory through state terrorism. This is not going to happen.
And my question that they don't even consider the Kashmiri people as a party to this whole issue, to this whole problem.
Yes.
What can we do to make, when I say we, I mean the countries in the region, internationally, India, to realize that it is basically the people of Kashmir who are the main party to this whole issue and problem. They don't consider the Hurriyat leaders, let's say, as a part of this whole issue, the Kashmiri people as a part of this whole issue.
It doesn't matter what India thinks, but there are three parties to the dispute: Pakistan, India, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And the people of Jammu and Kashmir are the key constituent and the key party to the dispute. They're the ones who have to decide about their political future. So India can delude itself and it can sort of remain in its make-believe world. But the fact is the Kashmiris are the key party, as I said, to the dispute. And there's a fourth party, incidentally. It is the United Nations Security Council, which drafted and passed those resolutions, and they capture the consent of the international community. And in accordance with those resolutions, a plebiscite has to be held. through which we will determine the political future of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Let me tell you that people are not talking about Tamil Nadu or Assam or other places in India, other provinces in India, because there are at least 17 insurgencies in India, the Indian Union, the so-called Indian state. But nobody is talking about that. People are talking about Jammu and Kashmir because it's a dispute, because Kashmir is on the agenda of the United Nations. It is renewed and placed on the agenda every year. India has never gone back to, since 1972, India has never gone back to the Security Council to, with the request to withdraw this agenda item or delete it from the United Nations Security Council's agenda. Why is it there on the agenda? Or why is UNMOGIB, United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan, stationed in Pakistan, or it goes to India also, although India has tried to frustrate its mandate. But the fact is that it is still there. So India cannot convincingly argue that Kashmiris are not a party to the dispute.
Many people have taken up arms against the Indian atrocities, against the Indian forces which are there killing innocent people, attacking the ambulances, attacking hospitals, attacking the patients inside those hospitals. When children are being killed, when women are being killed, when school girls and college girls are being killed, what is the option left with the youth of Kashmir, with the young people of Kashmir? How do they resist? How would they resist an army of 700,000 personnel?
I think that the Kashmiris are only people in the world which have been deprived of their right to defense or self-defense under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. Otherwise, all peoples all around the world have the right to defend themselves. But India has disarmed them, and India is using naked brute force to quell their aspirations.
Pellet guns recently, the way they were used.
The pellet guns have blinded hundreds and have in fact injured thousands. And and there have been killings, and more than, I was looking at the latest figures, more than 20,000 people are grievously injured. There have been mass human rights violations, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes which India has committed. It has violated international humanitarian law, it has violated international human rights law, all the covenants, all the Geneva Conventions, and also international law. And the Grund norm in international law, or jus cogens as it is called, a peremptory norm of international law, is self-determination. They are denying self-determination to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. What I want to emphasize here is that they are doing this with impunity, but this doesn't legitimize their occupation. They will have to vacate that territory, and they will have to, our suggestion is that move to the peace table. Don't try to resolve the issue through state terrorism.
Mr. Modi, Indian Prime Minister Modi came to Pakistan. He was greeted by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. He was welcomed in Pakistan. But the day he went back and we saw the Pathankot attack, later we saw the Uri attack, Pakistan has been emphasizing on Kashmir and all such kind of things happening inside India. India wants to use all those incidents as a bargaining chip with Pakistan, and they equate that with Kashmir. What do you think about this? Many experts call it a drama that is going on inside India. What do you think about that?
You see, India wants to avoid engagement with Pakistan at all costs. Two reasons, and this is BJP's motto, that eliminate the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in your bilateral agenda with Pakistan. They want to focus on religious tourism, commerce, confidence building measures, inane empty talks on peace and security and stability, or terrorism, but they do not want to focus on the core issue. The core issue is the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Second, they want to demonize Pakistan all around the world. They think that by demonizing Pakistan, isolating Pakistan, they would somehow try to sabotage this whole process for peace, or whole process for giving an identity to the Kashmiri people or determining their political future. Let me tell you that my own view is that we have invested too much time and energy and effort in bilateral talks. Look at the history of bilateral talks, starting from the 1980s up to this day. Have they produced any results? They have been like a mirage. They have never produced any results. We have very sincerely pursued this track. I mean, of course, it is an issue which rightly belongs to the United Nations. But we sincerely thought that by working with India, we would be able to find some formula for the resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. In the process, India has acquired veto on two things. One is the agenda. In the agenda, if you look at the bilateral agenda right now, the 8-point agenda or the 10-point agenda, Kashmir has been reduced to a fraction of the entire agenda. It is no more the core issue. And Kashmir is elephant in the room. If you don't discuss Kashmir, you are not discussing the most important issue between India and Pakistan. And when it comes to timetable talks, what they do is that on one pretext or the other, they cancel talks, they postpone talks. They say that, well, it is terrorism, it's Pathankot, it is Udhampur, it is a couple of other incidents. It used to be Mumbai all the time. Samjhota doesn't figure anywhere. And they just do not want to participate in the talks. I think that there's a third reason also. If they sit across the table and they accuse Pakistan of terrorism or militancy in Kashmir, they will have to answer to us, to our negotiating teams, on what they have done in case of Kulbhushan Yadav. Why did they deploy that spy here? And it was not just one spy, one operator representing RAW, the official agency. He was commander of a network, and he was not only trying to sabotage China-Pakistan economic corridor, he was fanning subversion, supporting it, and also backing terrorism, terrorist acts. So this was an act, an aggressive act against a sovereign state. So I think that given that background, that repertoire of evil designs of India against Pakistan, it is it's not surprising at all that it doesn't want to have talks with Pakistan.
For peace in the region, for peace between Pakistan and India, can we have peace without solving the Kashmir issue?
I don't think so. I don't think so. This is the trigger, the casus belli, as they say in international law, the cause for tensions between India and Pakistan. And India and Pakistan are nuclear armed states. Kashmir sits at the center of their relationship and all the tensions that they have between the two countries. It is not a territorial dispute. It is a dispute about the destiny of a people whose total number should be 20 million. And the total area of that territory is not small either. I mean, if you combine all the regions, Jammu and Ladakh and the Valley of Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir, put together, they are about 220,000 square kilometers, big chunk of territory. But more importantly, it's the people, 20 million people whose destiny has to be decided.
Right. Mr. President, talking about this whole Kashmir issue, what role can other big countries in the region play, like China? India doesn't want to become part of OBOR, CPEC either, but they want to become part of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But other countries in the region, how do you see them taking up the Kashmir cause? Countries like China, Russia, Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, what can the regional countries do to pressurize India to stop the genocide in Azad Kashmir, in Indian-occupied Kashmir?
I think primarily it is the responsibility of the United Nations Security Council to address this issue. It is their responsibility, historically speaking. They drafted these resolutions and they passed them, and therefore they must implement them. So primarily it is their responsibility. And the Russian Federation and China are represented in the United Nations Security Council. So they can play their role there. The United States too, it should demonstrate leadership.
Right.
It should not side with the oppressed, it should not side with the oppressor, but rather than with the oppressed. For instance, in case of this designation of Sayyid Salahuddin, they sided with the occupation forces. They did not side with the victims of occupation and the victims of terrorism in Kashmir, which is the Kashmiris. So I think that your question whether China and Russia and others and Shanghai
and UN for that matter, obviously international
organization can play a role. Shanghai Cooperation Organization's remit is limited. What they can do directly or indirectly, probably they can promote confidence building measures. They can nudge India and Pakistan towards engagement and dialogue. But I think indirectly China can play a very important role, and so can Russia, because Russia has relations with both nations, and it is in the interest of Russia and China and other countries of the region to promote peace and stability and resolve conflicts through dialogue and through diplomacy.
Right. Mr. President, pleasure having you on the program. Thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. We discussed about the Kashmiri people. The people of Kashmir have been fighting for their cause, have been fighting for their right, freedom in Indian occupied Kashmir. Many innocent children, many innocent women and people have lost their lives. People like Burhan Wani have been fighting in the Indian atrocities in Kashmir, and that this would continue. The people of Pakistan stand with the people of Kashmir. Today was an exclusive dialogue with the President of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Sardar Masood Khan. Thank you for watching today's dialogue. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.